All right, let's get into the incredible story of how a massive 130-part collection of books was created under some of the most restrictive, impossible conditions you can imagine.
A sun is rising. I mean, that's a pretty powerful way to describe the emergence of the Risale-i Nur, isn't it? This was a huge collection of Quranic commentary, and it was about to completely change the spiritual landscape of Turkey. So, the big question is, how on earth did this sun manage to rise during what many considered one of the darkest times in the country's history? To really get the scale of this, we've got to look at the unbelievable challenges the author was up against. Okay, so let's set the scene. The story kicks off in a time of intense suppression. The sources we have from that period describe it as an era just defined by a terrible current of misguidance and irreligion. What the sources are describing here is basically an official campaign to try and erase religious identity. The idea was to replace it with a more materialist philosophy. So religious figures were being silenced in a real effort to cut the nation's ties to its thousand-year Islamic history. And right in the middle of this climate, the author, Bediüzzaman Said Nursî, was seen as a threat. So he was exiled to a tiny, remote village called Barla. The goal was simple, really. Total isolation. The authorities figured if they sent him to this secluded village, his voice and his influence would just fade away into nothing. And it wasn't just isolation. He was under what's known as tarasud. Think of it as constant, intense surveillance. Every single move was being watched, and any attempt to communicate was met with serious pressure. The goal was complete silence. But here's the thing. You can't really silence an idea. Which brings us to the core question. How did a man with zero resources, under constant watch, manage to write a 130-part masterpiece? And the answer is it's incredible in its simplicity. Nursî himself couldn't write very quickly, so he spoke. There were no printing presses available for these kinds of texts, so the people themselves became the presses. It's an amazing workaround. So what you had was this huge underground publishing network, all powered by hand. Nursî would sometimes speak for hours on end, dictating a whole section in one go, while his students just scrambled to get every word down. And this is a really important point. This wasn't the work of just one man. An entire community basically sprang up around this mission, risking everything. The scale of this whole thing was just staggering. We're talking entire villages, men, women, even the elderly, all becoming part of this scribal movement. Get this, in one village alone, it was said that 1,000 pens were moving at the exact same time, all copying these texts. And women played such a crucial role. Not only did they copy the texts themselves, but this, quote, just says it all. They would take on extra work to free up their husbands for the cause. They'd hold lamps through the night so the scribes could see. They were, without a doubt, essential pillars of this whole movement. And let's be super clear here. This was incredibly dangerous work. Every single handwritten page was a major act of defiance, and it came with huge personal risk. People were arrested, their homes were raided, they faced intense persecution. But the copying and the secret distribution just never stopped. So after all that, after a 23-year effort, what was the ultimate result? What did it all lead to? Well, according to the sources, the Risale-i Nur managed to create what they call a Sedd-i Qur'ani, basically a Quranic barrier. You can think of it like a powerful spiritual dam that held back the tide of materialism that was trying to sweep the country. You can see that long journey right here. It took decades to go from those secret manuscripts being hidden from the police to finally achieving full legal publication. What started as just a whisper in that little village of Barla eventually became a public voice, forever preserved in print. The story of the Risale-i Nur really makes you think, doesn't it? It suggests that even under the most impossible conditions, a message that people need to hear will, somehow, always find a way to be told.